Welcome to FinanceFeeds podcasts. FinanceFeeds is the world's premier interactive Forex industry news source, providing the latest insights and current affairs from within the online trading industry worldwide. Enjoy our latest podcast episode. Welcome to FinanceFeeds podcast. It's episode 14. My name is Nikolai Isayev. I'm editor-in-chief of FinanceFeeds. Joining me today is Anton Sokolov, who is marketing manager at Brokeree Solutions.
Hi, Nikolai.
Anton,
Hi.
welcome to our
Thanks
show.
for having me.
Did I got the title right?
Yeah, marketing manager. Yeah, all good.
Perfect. So Anton, you and I have actually traveled to quite a few events this year, industry events. I wanted to find out from you which ones you found the most memorable, and what are your impressions of the key themes in our industry so far as we close out 2022?
Well, in terms of events, it was quite eventful, right? I think we originally planned to attend 6 events, and then it ended up being almost 13, 12, twice as much. So
Wow.
yeah, been a lot of traveling for our team and me included. Yeah, in terms of the events, I'm a big fan of what Ultimate FinTech is doing, right? The IFX
Mm-hmm.
Expo Finance London Summit. Uh, those are always great events, which you do expect great things, and they're always successful. There were
Mm-hmm.
a few of new promoters and new organizers popping up here and there. We
Uh-huh.
do monitor the market and try to get in touch with them, but yeah, in terms of the ones to visit, definitely FX Expo. So looking forward, actually, in this January, right, next January. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like we're only going to get a very short break between 2022 conferences and 2023 conferences. But yeah, it looks like IFX Expo Dubai in January is going to be the next big event. So we are already wishing you success and luck there at that event coming up.
Well, I mean, it has been prepared for us even sooner than we had prepared London Summit. So
Oh,
yeah,
really?
so all the designs, everything was set up already. Everything was pre-ordered and pre-booked. So I think we're already preparing for for May or something like that.
That's very cool. That means you guys are very well organized. You know, to me, it seems like the events in Dubai do have a certain caliber. I would say, as opposed to events in London or let's say Asia, for example. It seems like Dubai has established itself as the new financial hub for many firms, whether it's forex, whether it's crypto, whether it's many different other things, including fintech. Is that your impression as well?
I'd say so, yeah. And it actually happened quite quickly, right? We had a very long
Yep.
break, like pandemic-wise, right? And only now we can see Asia to slowly get into back to business. But Dubai, they just opened up the
Hmm.
door and business flooded. And I think it was very smart decision on their part. And
Yeah, I agree.
I'm actually. Yeah, I think it's about 3 events which we definitely visit every year in Dubai at this point, and
Hmm. Hmm.
there are a few new ones which we're looking forward to actually next year. So
Hmm.
stay tuned, I guess. But yeah, Dubai is doing well, and they're actually doing quite well in terms of regulating. Right, they started to give or accepting new brokerages and giving up licenses. Uh, so yeah, the market is developing quite rapidly in MENA region.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I also wanted to say congratulations on winning the Best Emerging FinTech Award at the recent Finance Magnates London Summit. This was actually a few weeks ago. Obviously, we were there together. I wanted to ask, what does this award mean for Brokeree and for you personally?
Uh, well, actually, it's been great to receive the award. First of all, because usually you don't expect, right? The company gets nominated here and there, but then once you get the award, it's like it's nice thing to have, right? And we've been congratulated by partners and clients who are actually coming out and saying, "Yeah, we voted for you. Good luck, guys." And for the
Hmm.
company, it does mean sort of recognition, I'd say, right? For we've been on the market for quite a while, actually. It's our ninth year this year. So
Hmm.
getting the award is just the confirmation that we're doing things right. And
Hmm.
and
Yeah, that's
yeah, and the
awesome.
last year, oh, this year, I guess we're still in 2022. The year has
Hmm.
been we have been growing quite rapidly in terms of employee count, in terms of new opportunities, new markets, and yeah, I hope things continue this way for the next year.
Hmm. Awesome. So I wanted to talk about some sort of industry trends that have been impacting brokers that use MetaTrader platforms like MT4 and MT5. As you well know, Metaquotes recently released an update to the web version of MT5 in order to allow traders to continue using Apple iOS devices, right, to trade in on their mobile devices using a meta platform. Do you see this solution as a stopgap measure, or do you think that this is enough? As a long term solution that traders will be satisfied with, going forward in terms of having the ability to trade on mobile MetaTrader.
Well, I think the ban itself came like out of nowhere. Nobody was expecting such harsh measures. Of course, we can see the reasoning
Correct.
behind it, right? And I believe Metaquotes confirmed that they were in talks with Apple prior to it happening. But the ban itself was like maybe not very thought through quite well in terms of how it affected the whole industry, right? Because
Hmm.
MetaTrader is the prominent. I think they still have more than 70% share of the market in terms of trading apps,
Hmm.
and just like removing everything. Yes, of course, it didn't affect the existing clients. It only affected the new ones who didn't download the app in time. And
Hmm.
as it comes to the web trader, they always had the web trader, right? It's just that they redesigned it, reworked it to introduce new design and to optimize performances.
Correct.
And here I can actually answer from different sides, right? From like as a user of mobile apps in general, and then as a
Sure.
technology provider from the development standpoint. And if we look at it from
Hmm.
technology perspective, developing a web application is actually so much easier, right? Because like CSS3 has come a long way, and you can just create responsive interfaces which will work on every design, no matter desktop, tablet, whatever, even microwave, right? It doesn't
Hmm.
matter. You can just you can just
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean.
yeah,
Hmm.
and you just develop one product, basically one application. That's why we see quite a lot of companies introducing their new products only web based. But
Hmm.
when we look at things from the user standpoint, right? Some processes you would prefer to have an app, right? Even if you are using the app just once a week. I mean, of course, training wise, it's much more frequent, and we can speak about why and what are the reasons to use the app later on. But
Hmm.
uh, for example, like when you're flying, I know I can download the QR code or like boarding pass on my phone or open it up through browser, but I would still prefer to have an app. I don't know. It like I just trust that the app will be more secure. It will have more features in terms of notification, like pushing. And then if I close the browser, I won't receive those push notifications. So there are
Hmm.
some, yeah.
I see what you mean. Hmm.
And in this regard, if we get back to the web application, right? Having the web
Yeah.
application, or basically what is the reason to have application in first place, right? If we speak about retail trading or trading in general, having desktop app was always the way to go. Having multiple monitors was always the way to go because you need to monitor news, you need to monitor what's happening on the market at this particular time. You need to monitor a couple of I don't know, Twitter feeds, channels,
Charts as
charts,
well, price
and then
charts.
to
Yeah.
make an
Hmm.
analysis. I mean, I can't imagine a person just picking up the phone and doing technical analysis on the phone. It's not happening. You still need a bigger screen, right? And
Hmm.
in this regard, having this functionality or this reason for the web app, yes, it makes sense. And the only thing why traders would prefer to have the mobile app is to monitor what's happening with their positions. Or let's say they everybody uses like Telegram or Facebook communities for the for like social or like for signals, trading signals, right? Ideas, and
Hmm.
they get those ideas and they receive them in Telegram. You received it on your phone in the group, and you just need to react quickly. You open up an app on the same phone, and you just open up the trade.
Yeah.
Risk-wise,
Uh-huh.
of course, there are some concerns and whom you trust and what, but the convenience and having easy access, I just can't see it with the web trader. So I think it's a solution for now, and it will suffice, and clients can still use it, right? But for some things, you
Hmm.
would still prefer having mobile app just because it's just faster. You trust it more.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm. No, I agree with you because again, I don't necessarily use MetaTrader, right? I don't trade at this point in time, but I kind of echo your sentiment there in terms of using other apps, other businesses on your phone. Like your analogy with a plane ticket or a boarding pass is actually very interesting because we all travel a lot to, like we said, industry events. And you're right. There is a way for you to get your boarding pass. Usually, the phone asks you if you want it in your
mm,
wallet, in your Apple Wallet, right? For example. And I would say that to your analogy, I'm always like, well, okay, but I would rather access it from the app of the airline that I'm flying because, like you said, the perception is that the information that we're going to get through that app is going to maybe be a little bit more accurate than it is through a browser version of the airline's website, for example, or just that boarding pass that was electronically issued to me, but it was issued to me at a particular time, and between it being issued and my flight leaving, there could be some changes, like the gate might change or the departure time might change, or whatever it may be. And I feel like that's important information that I would like to see as soon as possible. Do you think also there is and maybe perhaps from the technical side of things? I don't know if you are involved with your colleagues in studying things like performance issues. I mean, I would venture to guess that using a browser version of a trading platform in your Apple device, there could be some performance implications in terms of how quick it is, in terms of functionality, as opposed to a native, standalone application. I don't know if you have any thoughts
no,
on that.
yeah, absolutely. Native applications would always give developers more freedom in terms of optimizing it, right? Because you are working directly with the operating system. Whereas when we
Sure.
work with web application, we tend to work in like restraints of the browser itself, and
Hmm.
like I don't know, if you use Chrome on your PC, on your laptop, on your Mac, right? You
Hmm.
you will know how much resources it requires just to run, and if we couple it with the performance and like heavy performance of the web application itself, there is so much
Hmm.
things where it might go wrong. But
Hmm.
developing natively, it is quite expensive, right? Because now instead of supporting just one application, you need to support at least two, right? Android and iOS, at
Hmm.
least those two. And then if we speak about Android apps, there are so many different devices. With iOS or like Apple devices, iPhones, you have all the knowledge. You can like get your app right the first time and support it that way. But with Android devices, you would need to test it on so many different devices because I don't know. It just requires,
I
yeah, it
understand what
just
you
requires
mean.
much more
Hmm.
things to do. And I mean, I know there are some technologies which allow web applications to run faster. They use like WebAssembly, like for gaming stuff. You can actually game through browser window, but always going native would make more sense. It's just a matter of how much resources we are willing to invest to support all those apps. Because you don't just release an app. If new feature comes up on the trading platform, you need to have it in 5 different places and it requires different
Hmm.
teams,
Hmm.
different expertise, different optimization. So I'd say it's mostly the problem of optimizing and resource management in terms of how much you invest into support.
Hmm. 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 Would you agree? Like, my opinion is that this may be a good solution in terms of the update to the web version of MT5. But my personal opinion is, I think Metaquotes is still going to work towards, resolving these issues that they may have with Apple, and actually getting, you know, getting the app back into the App Store, because ultimately, I mean, I think that needs to be the end goal, at the end of the day. But partially based on what you said, you still, at the end of the day, you still might want to have a native app. And there's obviously thousands and thousands of traders who still have the mobile app on their phone, because again, they downloaded it and began using it prior to what happened. But I would also say that, arguably, the people who don't have access to the mobile app now, these are all new traders, new users, right? People who are just getting into the market and just beginning to work with whichever broker they want to trade with, right? Um, and I would argue that the majority of these people are demographically younger than the thousands and thousands of traders who have already been successfully using the app for years. And so these younger people expect the technology to work quickly, expect the technology to be quite easy to use. And so some of them, from a usability perspective, might find this web version of MT5 as being more of a stopgap, like I said in the beginning of my question, kind of like, okay, I understand that this is what I have to use today, but I would like at some point to see, a native version of this type of trading platform be available to me. And obviously, we don't have statistics, we don't have information. These customers can comment and contact their broker, and ask questions or give comments, or even, well, yeah, basically, contact support, and perhaps say, hey, well, this is cool, or this is okay, but would I be able to trade on a native app at some point soon? I would venture to guess you guys, Brokeree, are more involved in this than someone like us, like FinanceFeeds. But I would venture to guess that if there are clients who are giving such feedback, that feedback ultimately might uh, come from the broker to you, from your clients to you, in terms of, hey guys, this is sort of what we're seeing and hearing, and kind of our hopes or expectations from the brokers themselves, perhaps, is that that the native app will return at some point, or at least there is sufficient demand to get a native app back on the App Store, for
No, I
example.
absolutely agree. And actually, I think there's no any similar case like that where we have one technology provider having one application, and through which application you can access thousands of companies, which then have millions of users, and everything was just in one app. And you
Hmm.
just don't see it that often, right? Usually, what companies do, and what we actually observe in the market with other trading platforms, they would white label the solution in such a way that it is uploaded through the like developer's account of a particular company, of a brokerage, and then the app will be
Hmm.
branded with logos, with colors, with whatever branding is for that brokerage, and it will be uploaded through their separate account. And if something goes wrong, and if clients carry on with some feedback about the app, about the features, or make complaints to the app store, right? Everything will fall down to the brokerage, which is ultimately responsible for how they treat the clients, right? And they might not be responsible for the app behavior, but well, that's usually the better way. And if we actually look at the policies of App Store, it is quite tricky to have the app in general published there, right? They have very strict policies on how to approve it, and but at the end of the day, as you mentioned, the newer generation, and if we look at the research done by multiple academics or like regulators, right? The younger
Hmm.
generations, they tend to prefer trading apps, not just trading in general, but trading app. It has to be an
Hmm.
app. It has to be a native app. It has to have certain features. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be convenient, right? And
Hmm.
I do believe that somehow they will find a solution to bring it back. And it
Hmm.
is just, well, let's hope it happens quicker, right? Because we
Sure.
do observe how brokerages tend to view other platforms at this moment,
Uh-huh.
and I think they're working on it.
Hmm. Well, this actually brings me to my next question, which is, and you mentioned in part earlier in our discussion that there's different numbers being thrown around. I don't think anybody knows the exact figure besides Metaquotes themselves, but they have a huge market share, right? Arguably, you mentioned something like 70% of the market of for trading platforms. But at the same time, um, uh, one of the thoughts or feedback that I saw from some of our colleagues in the industry that attended the London conference a few weeks ago was that a lot of the other platform providers, the non-meta fintech providers, obviously got a lot of inbound interest from brokerages right after this situation transpired. Obviously, some of them will probably uh, gain some new business from brokerages, right? As a result, but the overarching sort of thought is that sure, these other platform providers will gain some traction in terms of market share, but ultimately, MetaQuotes will still continue to be the dominant player in terms of trading platforms for brokers, specifically within FX and CFD industry. Do you agree with this assumption or with this thought?
I would say yes. There are actually like different perspectives we can look at the popularity of MetaTrader.
Hmm.
One which is usually thrown around as like why MetaTrader 4 actually is still quite popular, right? When we
Hmm.
already have MetaTrader 5, which has been in development for so much longer, and
Hmm.
it actually supports like multi-asset processes or multi-asset trading, which was not initially the plan for MetaTrader 4.
Hmm.
Like cryptocurrencies coming up, they're so much easier to start working on MetaTrader 5 than to try to manual your way into like configuring MetaTrader 4 to work with it. You can still do it, but MetaTrader 5
Hmm.
was planned ahead to support all different upcoming like instruments. And one of the arguments we hear is that traders don't want to transfer because they so used to MetaTrader 4, uh, how it works. Like they have expert advisors, they have different robots, algo trading, and those are not getting transferred to MetaTrader 5. That's why we're using it. But actually, the other part of the
Hmm.
business is that dealing desks, right, or like risk management teams, liquidity management
Uh-huh.
teams,
Hmm.
those are the old guys. And for them to transfer their knowledge to MetaTrader 5, because even though the trading platforms are developed by the same company, the
Hmm.
original idea behind MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5 are completely different, right? And everything which was not in place for MetaTrader 4 is now in place for MetaTrader 5. So all the different processes
Hmm.
of on all the different like nuances of how to work with, they need to be shared
Yeah.
and basically learned new for the old teams, the ones
Hmm.
who used to work with
Hmm.
MetaTrader 4, right? And in terms
Yeah.
of the capabilities of like back office or like the whole infrastructure other than the trading platform interface or the marketing side of the business, the industry has used so much to the processes how it was done on MetaTrader. And switching
Hmm.
or introducing a new platform, it's not a matter of integrating it with crm, or which is usually they're already integrated, or like marketing it to traders.
Hmm.
It is the actual back office and risk management part of it, and this is where
Hmm.
the most headache comes from for the brokerages, I would say. And that's why
Uh-huh.
I do believe that MetaTrader still continues and will continue to be the larger player in terms of trading platforms.
That's an interesting point that you make in terms of these. I would maybe we can call them
Mm.
structural differences between MT4 and MT5, because I had experience a little bit with this when MetaTrader 5 rolled out many years ago. It's been many years since MetaTrader 5 was launched, soft launched, let's say, but then brokers, began to actually use them with live clients and things like that. I just remember that one of the issues was, and you kind of just brought this up, is that MT5 has a lot of these internal components like CRM, like things that can be utilized for marketing or tracking trader behavior and things like that. Historically, in MT4, these were all outsourced in the sense that there was just a connection to a legacy or another third party system, which was an outside system, and that's how data and MetaTrader and those systems interacted. I remember when MT5 came about, one of the pitches that I saw and heard from Metaquotes was that you don't need all of these integrations anymore. You could essentially do a lot of this work directly inside the MetaTrader terminal itself, right, or within the MetaTrader ecosystem. And I remember colleagues saying, okay, that's great, but we spent so much time and resources building these old legacy connections, and these legacy connections work quite well for us to move to this new ecosystem and bring everything in there actually would entail either the same amount of work or even more work, and it's not a something that could be done very quickly or overnight. It would still take a lot of work. And I think perhaps, and I don't know if you agree with me, I think that's perhaps MetaTrader 4 is still alive in the sense that it's still a fully functioning trading system. Because I remember over the years, there were efforts by Metaquotes to essentially tell brokers, listen, we're going to sunset MetaTrader 4. We're not going to just radically stop servicing brokers who are using MT4. But what we're going to do is we're going to sunset some of the updates and some of the development that normally was previously done for MetaTrader 4 to for upkeep on the technical side. I guess these are things that I'm not too well versed in, but the impression was that they wanted brokers to gradually shift over into MT5, and that didn't necessarily happen over the years. There's still obviously a lot of companies using MT4. The evidence is that MT4 is still supported by Metaquotes. It's still a fully functioning older legacy style system. I know I'm saying legacy, but that's
Mm.
just to compare it to MT5, which is the newer version. So it seems like there's some of these caveats that we have in the industry that are playing or have played a role so far.
Well, yeah, I mean, with MetaTrader in general, as you mentioned, there has been so much, or like so much development done, and so many third-party solutions are available, which actually makes it a very good platform in terms of being able to fine-tune it to your specific needs. And
Hmm. Hmm.
ultimately, that's what we observe, right? We have so much different CRM providers already on the market, and then it's not very uncommon for a brokerage to start and develop their own system in place, just because the way
Hmm.
they view or the way they used to have their back office processes set up, or the way they chose their technology stack, or like infrastructure, it requires them to do some sort of development. And if that development is difficult to do with the third party's technology provider, then they will start doing it by
Hmm.
themselves. And just because MetaTrader has been on the market for so long and they provide those server side APIs, right? The programming language, or like the protocol, how programs can communicate
Hmm.
between each other. They allow so much flexibility in terms of making the solution or the platform work for you the way you want it to work, which might
Hmm.
not be the case with the newer platforms which are coming up, because usually they saw how the MetaTrader was doing it. They decided, okay, we understand that these parts of the like things like CTrader, right? It was built that way originally. They looked at
Hmm.
MetaTrader 4 and they noticed that, okay, these things are not as modern, or like this can be done different way, or like here we would like to focus on this instead of that. And that's how
Sure.
they originated, right? Now, of course, they
Hmm.
went the different paths, and they still have their different differences. But originally speaking, it's just that they saw and they decided to improve upon it. Whereas with MetaTrader,
Hmm.
they allowed those customizations to be done around the platform, which I think is very, very, very
Right.
convenient and
Hmm.
very good way to do business, right?
Yeah, of course. And but I think, for someone like a C trader, that's the never natural evolution of any business, especially when it's a niche business. Let's say there's one or two companies doing it. There's obviously, competitors come into the fold in any industry really, because they analyze and see what someone else did, and sort of see what the shortfalls may have been, or maybe they have something that just works better in terms of some specific solutions. And so, healthy competition, in a sense, is what I would call it. And there's obviously many other different platform providers out there as well, in terms of, and we all know these companies. They're arguably our friends in the industry. Some of them provide solutions which are built from the ground up based on your needs, and others basically provide something that's already been developed and packaged up, and sort of you're getting a packaged solution which you can customize to your needs, but a lot of the work has already been done for you, right? In a sense. So there's always, I would say that in our industry, there's an ample amount of solutions that you can use based on based on your different needs. Anton, I also wanted to ask you. I think we discussed this a little bit. Actually, we discussed this quite a few times, I think, with you when we've seen each other this year. And this is something quite new. So the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, they recently came out with a statement regarding their concerns with what it perceives as so-called gamification of trading on the part of UK regulated brokers and exchanges. And I think since that statement came out, there was also a letter that someone from the FCA sent directly to the CEOs of UK, I believe, CFD brokers. It was quite a long letter. I didn't necessarily have a chance to read all of it, but I believe some of it touched upon the points that were from the statement, in the sense that there are concerns about the way that trading services are being marketed by UK firms, and things like that. And it didn't necessarily, this letter that I saw, it didn't necessarily spell out any kind of sanctions or actions that the FCA would take, but the language in the way it was written, it seemed to me personally to indicate that perhaps later on down the road in 2023 or later, the FCA may be changing some of its regulations, some of its requirements for the way brokers actually present their services to traders or to new clients, and the way that perhaps even their front end platforms are set up. And the last thing I wanted to say about this is this topic has actually been discussed widely in the United States here, where platforms like Robinhood, which I'm sure you know of, and others like Webull, have arguably gamified trading. I mean, if you look at their front ends, a lot of them, like we just discussed, the mobile version or native apps for trading on Apple. If you look at these companies' apps and you download them, you start using them, you could see that they're not tailored to some sophisticated investor. They are tailored to someone who may be a millennial, someone who is well versed in what gaming is. They've tried to play video games or games on their phone before. And so it's very easy for such new traders to get very quickly accustomed to this type of trading app, and begin investing money or trading on the markets. I guess I wanted to know what your perception of this is, specifically what's happening in the UK, and sort of the whole phenomenon of gamification, which really started, I would argue, around 2 years ago. And does this have implications in the long run? Does this have implications for companies that might even be your customers, who may have apps or some other sort of trading front ends that possibly would need to be changed or modified or anything like that?
Well, there are actually quite a few points to touch upon in here. Um, have you actually had a chance to look through the research on which they based their statement, or the latter, right?
I did not. I did not take a deep dive into it. But if you did, please fill us in.
Yeah, I was just curious to see, and I have always been a fan of academic research and just the methodology behind it, right? And
Okay.
mm, interestingly enough, when I originally heard the statement, like read the statement, right, I thought of maybe slightly different gamification elements, right, or like the way it was phrased in there. It seemed like a witch hunt, right? Or right, we need to ban everybody, everything.
That's sure. That's
Yeah,
one of the legitimate perceptions from market participants.
and
Yes, yes.
but once I started reading the research and what they're based it on, the examples were actually quite alarming to me, I would say. So the examples of the
Hmm.
apps they used, they mostly spoke about the notification, like celebratory achievements, right? And it's one thing to celebrate an
Okay.
achievement, right? You made a great deal, hooray, well done. But the way it was phrased in the apps, it was like, yeah, you leveled up, you belong on the trading floor. So instead of just
Hmm. Hmm.
celebrating the achievement, they gave maybe in some ways false affirmation, or like
I
which
see.
will boost up the confidence of a trader, which I, as you mentioned, I usually the younger audience, right? I think
Hmm.
the average or like modal age in they used in the sample was around 27%, and in Robinhood the average age of their client is 31. So
Hmm.
the guys younger than the age, basically millennials and Gen Z, are the ones that use it.
Hmm.
And they did actually show in the way like in their research that this kind of confidence was already present in those generation, right? So people are already quite
Hmm.
confident in their, like they think that they know how to choose. And there's another actually paper on self-directed investors, also
Okay.
quite an interesting read, I would say, for for the weekend to come. And
Hmm.
Yeah, basically they were researching different approaches to trading, like the more like conservative approach, which usually was shown by the people who had education or had like graduate level education, or like majors in finance, economics, business, those who already had some knowledge about the market, right? And
Hmm.
those were usually the more conservative ones, and showed higher risk aversion. Whereas the newer ones who had no previous trading experience, they did not receive the knowledge, but they were quite confident. And the gamification, which boosts this kind of confidence, I actually find it concerning, right? When we speak about
Okay.
gamification, which yeah, I'll get to like basically gamification in my understanding, right? It's very powerful tool, and it's a great tool when used properly. And one of the
Hmm.
ways gamification shines is through education, right? That's why we see Duolingo apps or something like that, basically like chasing you to carry on learning the new language. And
Hmm.
gamification elements in education, they work perfectly well. But when we
Okay.
start to boost the confidence of the traders without actually educating them, and that's one of the concerns, and actually on the roadmap for the FCA for years to come, is increasing
Hmm.
that level of education among the traders, among investors, among newcomers to the industry.
Hmm.
So yeah, basically how I view it, when we use gamification in terms of educating clients how to use the platform, like teaching them how to trade, about different things, and and everything, it tends to work out well. But when we start to
Hmm.
go the, you know, the lousy route of of trying to push them and say, yeah, you're doing great, carry on, when they're not
Right.
doing great. I think there was actually one of the notification they used in the example or in the research was nerves of steel,
Hmm.
stocks are going strong, for the clients who were keeping their position longer, which,
Oh, so these are actual
yes.
messages sent
So
by
like
the broker
you
to
will
the
have
customer.
like a GIF popping up on your phone with
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
with the
Uh-huh.
statement like, yeah, you're leveled up, you're doing well. And
Uh-huh.
it does sound quite scary, right? If we speak about this kind of research.
Yeah, I could see. Yes, I could see how this could be misused.
And
Definitely.
even in their case, where they had the sample rate, I think of 625 different traders of different groups, different like
Uh-huh.
proficiencies, they found that the users that were influenced by gamifying experience, they would delay and close their positions later than planned, basically
Right.
exiting
Uh-huh.
their market in like increasing their risks ultimately. And
Sure.
this is
Right.
where
Right.
their
Right. Right. Yeah.
concerns of FCA come from, is in like decrease in risk aversion just because trader is feeling overconfident in their
Mm-hmm.
trading abilities. And I do find
Right.
it
Yeah.
quite alarming in this sense.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the other part of your question was, do you think it will affect our clients, right? We do have a product, social trading, right? Which
Sure.
does revolve around clients being in a group, or like seeing a leaderboard of different traders, of different signal providers, money managers, how do you
Mm-hmm.
call it? Does matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this leaderboard is based on rank, right? And originally you would think that they're connected, but I think they actually used in one of the examples is that part of the gamification, or like they view it as part of gamification, like the leaderboard, like most traded stocks, or like
Mm-hmm.
rising stocks,
Mm-hmm.
which were you like they have always been on the trading platforms. It's nothing new. And I don't think
Yeah.
it can influence a decision, right? You see that these are the rising stocks, and I need to pick it up, or like these are the falling ones, I need to hoard on them, and then they will rise someday.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not as alarming as the examples they used in the research. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 I think you bring up some very important points, and I would argue that when you bring up the example of someone who had a successful trade and essentially got a message from their broker saying, great job, you now qualify, or makes it sound like you could actually be an actual trader on a trade desk or on the trading floor, right? I think you're right in that does sound a bit alarming, because if we look at regulations, if we just look at the markets in general, forex and CFD markets, I mean, the number one thing that everybody needs to be aware of if they're trading on a demo account or on a live account, any positive trading results that you may have does not mean that they are going to continue in the future. I think that's one of the most critical disclaimers that's required by regulators to be displayed on brokers' websites globally, right? Whether it's the UK or the United States or elsewhere. So if you're telling someone that just had a successful trade, no matter how big or small that trade was, maybe they made only a few bucks, but you're telling them, hey, you did a great job. So, um, you know, now, you know, you might qualify for something, or just to give you more self confidence. That self confidence does not necessarily translate into more
Mm,
profitable trades in the future. And I think that's a pretty important point. And if someone understands the regulatory side of things or the compliance side of things in terms of what regulators constantly demand that brokers put on their websites in terms of disclosures, disclaimers, warnings to traders, it makes a whole lot of sense for the FCA to come out and say, listen, there's deep concerns with what you guys are doing, and there may be some calls to action in the future. I think the other side of this is, I've seen brokers, especially on the marketing side, hire a lot of people from the gaming industry over the last few years. I'm not going to name names or companies or people, but that's something that anyone can go and look up on our industry news sites in terms of new hires being brought into retail brokerages from firms that are in the sport betting space in the UK, or firms that were specifically focused on gaming and things like that. And so I would argue perhaps it's a natural progression of things. Folks from these similar industries join ours, which is specifically trading and a regulated industry with respect to what traders are doing and in terms of quote unquote making bets on where the price of currencies or commodities or other products are going, it would be natural that those folks would modify or alter um, the marketing message or just the CRM message, quote unquote, just relationship management message with their customers to be more like what they had in in these other
No,
industries.
I
So.
do agree, and this is actually another part of the gamification aspect, right? Uh, I think
Hmm.
just because, well, I mean, according to research, they're not trying to be very general. Like, they don't try to generalize. They try to be very specific in how they conduct those research and how it all happens. And
Hmm.
gamification in general in trading sounds wrong if we apply it generally, right? But if we start to
Hmm.
like do like market segmentation, right? When we start to look at like customer persona and different types of traders, which are actually in that other paper called self-directed investors, also on
Hmm.
FCA website, you can find it. And they actually had like three different types of investors, and the latter was the gambler. So
Hmm.
basically,
Hmm.
they do acknowledge it, and in the like service, they did like several interviews with different traders, and like we were asking them how did they feel about the gamified experience, how like what was their ideas of trading, what was their plans, whatever. And that was actually something which was boosted up by COVID pandemic, when a lot of like sports was not existent, and then we saw that large audience which are used on betting, right? They
Hmm.
saw an outlet in CFDs and FX, or like crypto, or like, well, in trading basically, as an
Hmm.
outlet for their, well, not addiction but their hobby. I don't know how to call it, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, no, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just
and
yeah.
since those are adults and they know what they're up to, and I do have a few friends from the industry who basically use the apps for that specific reason. They're like, yeah, I
Hmm.
can go to casino, or I can go to to bet on my favorite team, or I can open up a trade. For those people, these actions are the same, and if we try to regulate or restrict them from doing that, they will just find another outlet for that. But when
Hmm.
we utilize the same, and that's why I don't like, I think that bringing up expertise from different industries is a good thing, just because those people know how to work with their audience, right? But when
Sure.
we try to apply the same rules or the same strategies, marketing campaigns to the folks which were not coming for that, and we start to like diverge their attention and like manipulate basically, right, in a sense, by those
Hmm.
features, by those towards those much riskier behavior, I think that's something quite wrong, right? and
Yeah, it's a problem.
and I
Yeah.
just hope that regulators will be cautious enough not to affect the whole industry, right, and just be very restrictive, like Russian regulator being, right, just banning the
Yeah.
industry as a whole and then
Sure.
trying to build it up from scraps. I just hope that
Hmm.
they will be more cautious in terms of what kind of restrictions they impose, or like what kind of measures they go for.
Right.
So basically, for how I view gamification, it would be, as I mentioned, right? I do believe, and I'm a strong fan of gamification in education. So I think going for the route of a projects like FTM or like prop firms, uh, their
Hmm.
model, right? I think you're familiar with it, where the traders come in, they start trading on the demo account, and they need
Hmm.
to show certain results during like the period of the I don't know, during
Yes.
the
Yes.
period,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
like, how to go, like upgraded to,
To
yeah,
qualify
to qualify
to
basically
qualify
for
for,
the
yeah.
next year,
Uh-huh.
which is actually part of gamification, right? If we just look at it, you do something and then you upgrade it to a different tier or you qualify. But by doing so, they actually allow traders to trade, and you can't get the consistent results without knowing how to do it, right? You can't be lucky
Sure.
3 months in a row. I mean, maybe somebody, but yeah, it's quite unlikely. And
Yeah.
using gamification in this sense, or like allowing clients to, or like using gamification on demo accounts, right? Allowing them to taste the way to trade, to learn about the features of the app, to learn about the trading in general, I think is a very interesting idea. And I would just like to see more brands pursuing that kind of thing where they use it in a safer way. Because, like
Hmm.
another example I was thinking of, have you seen those quizzes or like questionnaires that you need to do in order to get qualified to trade more complex instruments?
Yes,
I mean,
I've seen. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I
Yeah, like the professional
yeah,
trader
yeah, yeah.
designation in some countries, that kind
I
of
mean, me
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
having a business degree, I mean, they look like a joke to me. You wouldn't even get those questions midterm. I mean, come on. You can get them. I can answer them in any language, even if I don't know the language, just because I know the market, right?
Right.
And
Sure.
those questionnaires or surveys or quizzes, they don't seem to me enough. They seem to be just like a write-off to say that, yeah, we're doing this to, like, our KYC is strong and we're checking out the clients. And I
Hmm.
think, again, it's a double-edged sword, right? You make the process, or like onboarding process, more complex. Nobody wants to do it because the clients or investors are already quite expensive to get by, right? The amount of
Yeah,
marketing
yeah, yeah.
budget you spend,
Acquisition
yeah,
costs. Yeah.
it might be a double-edged sword. But at the end, this will feed the vision of the market the regulators have, right? A safe environment where
Hmm.
the new traders are not pushed towards the complex, high risk instruments, leveraged accounts straight away. They need to go through some
Hmm.
sort of education and then carry on. So I think
Hmm.
the projects like that are, well, I'll be happy to hear about the projects like that. And actually,
Hmm.
one of the
Hmm.
project
Hmm.
was recently the Danish female trading group or something. Like, they have over 140,000 clients, and they started as a like educational project for like female in the trading, in the investment. And
Uh-huh.
recently the news came that they acquired a trading platform to basically to act as a sort of trading venue for the group they already educated.
For
Yeah.
them.
So I
Uh-huh.
mean,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
hearing about the project like that is quite curious to me. And let's hope that gamification stays but evolves to be safer, or like,
Hmm.
well,
Hmm.
those who want trading to be a game, they will always have this kind of attitude no matter what you do, right? And
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
those who didn't want necessarily to be affected by it, they should not be necessarily affected by that, if we speak
Hmm.
ethically about that.
No, no, yeah, I completely agree with you. And you bring up a very interesting idea. Demo accounts have been around for ever since live accounts have been around. And most large brokers that we know, global brokers, they obviously have an education section on their website. Some of them offer all of their educational resources for free. Some of them give them to you for free when you open a live account, and that's sometimes a sales gimmick, which
Mm.
we which if we're on the marketing side, let's be honest, we all know. But I think that's a very interesting idea. I feel like, if brokers don't do their part, like you said, to control gamification and kind of rein it in, then ultimately the regulator will be forced to put in some sort of restrictions or new requirements where either brokers can't say certain things, or again, they might actually be paralyzed in the sense that they won't be able to offer them any cool or engaging educational stuff going forward, because the regulator might say, well, now you can't do any of it. At the same time, what's stopping a regulator from telling brokers that any customer that you onboard to a live account and let them invest real money and trade, whether it's a leveraged account or 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 or whatever, what's stopping regulators from enforcing a policy that all live traders first need to conduct a certain amount of trades on a demo account, and for example, they have to try to use orders, so like stop loss orders or take profit orders, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? In order to make it mandatory for any new trader to go through this process, so they're sort of forced to educate themselves. You know what I mean? In terms of the risks of the market and kind of what they're going to be doing on their live account. I think it's an interesting. I'm sure that's not exactly what you meant, but this is an idea
No,
that
no.
developed in my head as you were talking.
I, I,
Forcing new traders to go to a demo account, but not just go to a demo account. They have to
mm.
complete some sort of actions on that demo account in order to quote unquote graduate from an educational program within a brokerage to then be allowed to open a
I
live
actually
account,
think
right?
there are policies or like measures like that in, I believe, in Singapore. Maybe
I see.
they
Okay.
have like mandatory stop loss, and then I do know that the
Hmm.
French regulator AMF,
AMF.
they also have the requirement that stop loss is mandatory. It has to be put before the trade is open, and like you actually have
Okay.
to do that, and
Hmm.
the amount you can lose on the trade should not be more. I think like there's some finicky calculation in terms of how much you can lose, and it should be equal to the amount of stop loss. So a trader, before placing an order, they basically
Hmm.
specify that, okay, I know that I will lose not more than 100,
Then this.
or
Uh
something
huh.
like that.
I see. I
And
see.
it
That's
actually
interesting to me.
a measure in France, and I believe in Singapore as well.
Hmm. Which would make sense because Singapore and France, if you compare those jurisdictions to other countries and regions, they are what we would call
Mm.
heavily regulated. There's a lot of regulation on the books. There's a lot of requirements for brokers in terms of business operations and all the things that they have to manage um, and things like that. So, well, let's see what happens in the future. Maybe brokers, as they say in English, have been put on notice. So let's see what happens next year and maybe in the future in terms of what changes this might bring. Hopefully might bring. If it doesn't, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anton, we don't have much time left. I wanted to actually touch upon some personal questions for a bit, if you don't
Sure.
mind. Just looking at your LinkedIn profile, I see that you have a very interesting background in terms of your education and experience prior to joining Brokeree. Can you tell us kind of if your foray into the fintech space in FX and markets happened by chance, or was it like a culmination of things in your education, in your life, in your career earlier? That kind of everything came together, and that's how you joined the industry. Can you talk a little bit more about
Yeah,
that?
sure, sure. I mean, I think the most interesting part of my previous education, right, is a technician in oil refinery or something like that.
Yes, that's one of the things I saw, and I'm like, listen, I have my guests. My guests are always from very diverse backgrounds, and you'd be surprised in terms of what kind of experiences or education or just where people grew up, how it had an impact ultimately on a person,
Hmm.
coming into our industry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, sure. No, I mean that part of education, like college degree, whatever it's called in
Yeah.
English. Yeah, it was something that you can go there and then decide what you do next. But I did enjoy the studies. Right, we had quite a lot of chemistry, different types of chemistries, like working with the plant and just getting to know the industry. But I actually always knew that I will end up in the business. So I like from the
Hmm.
very. I mean, in my family, I like. It's quite difficult to find a person who was not an entrepreneur at some point.
Hmm.
Basically, every relative of mine had some sort of business or have a business still, and I
Uh-huh.
always knew that I will be in commerce, like in business side of things. um, in terms of finance, there was a point in my life where I was interested. I think I was like 14, 15 or something, when I was interested in trading, in investing. I was just reading up a lot of stuff, and actually like trying like to learn technical analysis and trade up. But I knew that no, I'm not that proficient in mathematics to go for financial route and like for analysis and stuff.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, I stayed in the marketing, and I consider myself to be business student like mentality. I'm always curious about business processes, no matter what they are, just how the
Uh
businesses
huh.
work. So I knew that I'll be in B2B marketing uh, in any industry always. And it just happened to
Hmm.
be Brokeree, which is a technology provider in B2B space and finance, which all came together quite nicely. And all my previous hobbies or my current hobbies, they just blended in and allowed to be here.
Have you ever traded yourself before joining Brokeree? In terms of like, did you ever have a demo account or a live
Demo
account
for
in
sure,
here
and
where
it
you
was actually
traded?
one
Demo,
of
yeah.
the
Hmm.
funny things. When I had a demo account, I had a demo account with a broker, right? And when I joined Brokeree,
Sure.
I learned that the broker was a client of Brokeree, so I,
Brokeree. Uh
I
huh.
got um, a way to actually work with the brokerage or like the founders of the brokerage who brought me to the
Uh huh.
industry, or like
Sure.
so
Sure.
it was quite quite
I'm
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. I'm guessing you probably had things to say like, "Hey, well, from a user usability perspective, because I've used your system,
No, no, I actually
I've
like
used no."
I found the old like demo account reports and I shared it with them just like for fun and giggle. Yeah,
Oh, just to show them that you
I was a
participated
part
or
of it. Yeah.
traded with them. That's pretty cool. Yeah, yeah. And the last question I have is, I know that now you live in Finland, and I wanted to ask you what life there is like, particularly in terms of like, let's say, culture and weather. I mean, just stereotypically, I would think that it gets very very cold there during the winter, but then I would also think that like saunas and the culture of going to a sauna when it's cold in the winter is something that's might be a popular activity there. I could be wrong. These are all just stereotypes from me being an American.
Well,
But I wanted to see kind of what's the experience living there.
well, I do enjoy it. I always enjoyed colder climates, and yeah, it does get cold. But where it, like I mean, in parts of Russia, it also does get cold, and
It gets cold
yeah,
here too. I mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
of course.
what can you do? But I always enjoyed it, and
Hmm.
actually, like, still to this day, every time I see the first snow cover the floor, I'm so excited. Like, I'm popped up. Yeah, like the day is gonna be great because the snow landed on the grass.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, in terms of saunas, is quite difficult to dispute or like debate any stereotypes because they are in every building.
Oh,
And
really?
if
Uh-huh.
this sauna is not in the building, most likely every apartment will have it. I mean, I live in the apartment. We have sauna in the apartment, so we
Oh,
have personal sauna, right?
wow.
When I was studying
Sure.
in Lapland, there were sauna for the building, right? You live in like sort of dormitory, which is more like
Hmm.
apartments where like multiple people live in their own rooms, but you will have sauna
Hmm.
in there. And if there are no sauna in
Hmm.
the building or in the apartment, you will have like a public sauna nearby. We have one by the lake. So
Hmm. Interesting. And is it something that you use, that you got used to? Kind of. I mean, what's the typical sort of way that you would go about using a sauna? Are you using it daily? Do you
no,
do it once a week?
usually people will go on Saturdays for the sauna if it's like
Mhm.
as a family occasion, right? That's
Oh, I
that's the
see.
day where
Uh
you
huh.
go to. But public saunas, there are saunas in like swimming pools where like all the grumpy grandpas are like pouring water and it gets insanely hot. You like you walk in, your skin
Oh, I
starts
see.
falling.
I see.
It's scorchingly hot, but
Uh huh.
it is a popular activity. I would
Uh
say
huh.
for older generation, maybe a bit more popular than for
Hmm.
younger, but
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, people still use it. I do like it. I do enjoy it, just because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a way for you to like meditation part of it, right? You
Sure.
just sit there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You have nothing to do, right? You just you relax. You
What about in the warmer months or in the summer? Obviously, wintertime, yes. What are things like in the summer? What do people in Finland do usually in terms of like outdoor activities, hobbies? I mean,
no,
hiking,
yeah,
biking.
Finnish citizens, and I would say the whole Scandinavia, like Finlandscandia region, like Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Iceland. They are
Uh-huh.
people here are always used to be outdoors, and it's
Hmm.
quite rare. Like basically, what day is it? Thursday today, right? So basically, on Friday
Yeah.
after work, you won't see any like cars on the parking just because everybody packs things up and they go somewhere to the countryside and relax in the nature.
Ah,
So
okay.
this is the
Uh-huh.
common way to relax, and that's what they do. And that's why
Hmm.
that's one of the part which I enjoy about living in Finland. Right, I live in the
Hmm.
city or like a small town, but I literally have lake like 10 meters away from me.
Okay.
So
So you don't have to go far at
yeah, I
all
mean,
for.
you just
Hmm.
open up a window and you see nature. You see bunnies hopping
Hmm.
around. You see, I don't know, foxes running
Uh-huh.
around. You see birds. You are
Sure.
in the nature, and this is very,
Hmm.
very, very nice thing to have when you work in like finance and stuff, where people expect skyscrapers like Dubai, all the luxury and and stuff which comes with successful investments. But yeah, I do enjoy being close to nature and being able just to walk out the door and
Uh-huh.
be in the nature.
That's very cool. Awesome. Well, Anton, thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. It was definitely a very insightful and interesting discussion on gamification and MetaQuotes and MetaTrader. Listen, we wish you the best of luck going into the holidays. The year is almost over, and also in early 2023, IFX Expo coming up and things like that. And hopefully we can do this again sometime soon, catch up on more interesting topics in our industry. Thanks a lot for joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks to you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to our latest Finance Feeds podcast episode. For sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest, please email us at info@financefeeds.com.